Okay, good evening, councilors, good evening, senior leadership team, and good evening to the residents of Pelham. Sorry we're starting a little late. We had a special closed meeting beforehand, and we're 45 minutes. Thanks for your indulgence. Call to order. I see we have indeed quorum, so I call this regular meeting of council, September 16th, in session. And if we may, we will now stand and sing the national anthem, led by our clerk.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all of us command, with glowing hearts we see rise, the true north strong and free, from far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Counselor, after viewing the agenda, is there any questions or changes to be made? Not seeing them.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do
Yep.
have one addendum that was added by Ms. Smythe to make a presentation. I just want to this was an email sent to council on the 9th of September with regard to an addendum regarding 155 Port Robinson Road.
Okay. Is that shown on the agenda?
I believe it is shown as an addendum at the bottom. It was circulated to council on the 9th, if
Okay.
that could be added as an addendum.
Okay.
It is shown as item 9.4.3.
Okay, so the item 9.4.3 was correspondence circulated to council.
Correct.
Okay. Any other, so no other changes. So be it resolved that the agenda for September 16th, 2019, regular meeting of council be adopted, and would that be amended?
As amended.
As amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. What do we have here? Oh, disclosure of pecuniary interest. After looking at the agenda, is there any counselor that wishes to declare a pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Not seeing any. May the clerk please note that. Hearing of presentations, delegations, regional report. Presentation. So we have the first is by the corporate climate change adaptation. Presenter is Dina Allen, climate change coordinator.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. First and foremost, I just wanted to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in front of all of you today. This is something new that I'm doing, so bear some patience with me. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Deanna, and I was hired as the climate change coordinator for the town of Pelham. I have worked with Councillor Hildebrandt with the Utility Sustainability Advisory Committee, and I do recognize you, Councillor Cholfi, at the supper markets on Thursdays. So nice to see some familiar faces, and I hope to speak with you further. So the reason, oh, that's not coming up, but that's okay. The reason why I'm here today is basically I'm seeking for your endorsement for the Corporate Climate Change Adaptation Plan and for the endorsement for an internal committee and an external committee. I'll explain further why we are creating this plan, but essentially it's here to be cost effective and it's environmentally friendly. And yes. Okay, so I'll be talking about climate change briefly in a small little nutshell, what the implications will be in Pelham and how we are going to address climate change here in Pelham and supporting documentation for a plan. Okay, so very, very briefly, the difference between, before I even explain what climate change is, I want to explain the difference between climate and weather. So climate refers to atmospheric conditions that occur over a long period of time. So we're talking 30 years. Whereas weather, on the other hand, refers to atmospheric conditions that occur for a short period of time. So the weather right now is sunny with a chance of rain. Climate change refers to, whether it's direct or indirect, it's human activity that's altering the environment. And it needs to be addressed, and we're doing that here with the Climate Adaptation Plan. So in dealing with climate change, there's two ways or three ways that you essentially can deal with it. So the first is a mitigation plan, which is where you're looking directly at how you're going to reduce the impact of climate change. And that refers to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. However, Pelham, and with the grant that you applied for, you're looking at an adaptation plan. So I will talk about the impacts that are going to take place here in Pelham. And what I'm here is to find out how you're going to adapt. So instead of being reactive, it's better to be proactive because it's going to save, again, it's going to save you money. So there was a study that was done, I thought it was really important to bring to your attention, by the National Roundtable on the Environment and the Economy. And costs associated with climate change are $5 billion, and they're expected to increase to $43 billion by the 2050s. So a study was done at Brock University in 2012 that they looked at the climate change impacts here in Niagara. We're going to experience more consecutive heat waves for 3 or more days, more frequent episodes of rain, an increase of thunderstorms, and an increase in average numbers of freeze-thaw cycles. So if you just look at that already, we know increase in average numbers of freeze-thaw cycles, that's going to impact our roads. If you think about heat waves of 3 or more consecutive days, think about our vulnerable populations, think about our elderly and the children. How are we going to adapt and how are we going to deal with that? And a leading governmental body known as the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has projected that there's going to be an increase in our annual average temperature, so we're going to experience also a 20% decrease in summer rainfall, and you've already experienced it here. There's going to be an increase in invasive species such as the gypsy moth. So what I have done so far is that I went and I looked at global targets, I looked at global projections, and I downscaled it to what's happening here in Pelham. So if you look at the PowerPoint here, at the very, very top, the top blue arrow, you can see that the average temperature is going to increase. So the 3 columns to the right, you have the one column from 1976 to 2005, then you have 2021 to 2050 and 2100. So what really caught my attention was the days over 30 degrees Celsius. From 76 to 2005, we were expecting 8 days. By 2050, that's going to jump to 43, and by 2100, that's going to jump to 93 days. Also, if you're looking at annual precipitation, we're expecting 200 more millimeters of rain by 2050. We're going to experience drought in the summer, more rain in the spring, and in the winter. So if you think about freezing rain, think about the impacts on your roads, more in manpower to clear debris from the streets, and so forth. I could keep going. Like I mentioned, some impacts in Pelham. I've already started some interviews with our internal committee to identify impacts in each department, and I'm really excited to share them with you further down the line. So just right here in this year alone, the impacts that we've experienced relative to climate change was the windstorm in February of 2019. We lost our famous arches to a giant windstorm with gusts up to 100 to 110 kilometers per hour, and it cost $110,000 to replace. We've also experienced the gypsy moth infestation this year, where it cost $77,000 to spray only selected areas. And I hate to say it, but there are going to be more impacts that we're going to experience, and we need to be proactive rather than reactive. So like I had mentioned earlier, there are actions to address climate change. mitigation is to reduce our emissions, adaptation is to reduce harm. My focus is predominantly on adaptation, and as you can see, the two diagrams overlap with each other. That's the co-benefits, so it'd be important to include some of those co-benefits as well, but predominantly, due to the time constraints, we're only looking at the adaptation plan. So, why am I here? That's the number one question. The purpose of me being here is because we want to increase Pelham's adaptive capacity and resiliency. And because of my time constraint, we can only focus on a corporate plan. I would love to touch upon a community plan. I would love to touch upon a mitigation plan, but we only have time for a corporate adaptation plan. And that means we're going to be focusing on town infrastructure, assets, and we're also going to be looking at day-to-day operations and services. So the outcome of this plan is we'll be prepared for climate change. Staff will be educated on the impacts of climate change, and specifically within in the grant, we're going to be focusing on stormwater mitigation and adaptation. Another focus that I really, really want to touch upon today is supporting documentation. You have all created the 2019 strategic plan, and amongst the strategic priorities, the one that's really important is the town wishes to grow revenue through the promotion of the cultural assets while protecting your environmental assets. And by doing that, we're creating a climate adaptation plan. So we're going to be looking at best municipal practices and how we can implement them here. And we're also, what's really crucial is educating staff and residents on the plan. Other supporting documentation is Pelham's official plan. I won't go into it, but it indirectly touches upon the need for an adaptation plan, such as protecting and maintaining the ecosystem health and integrity, protecting natural resources, and I thought this was really important, ensuring that all infrastructure is meeting the needs of the current generations as well as the future residents and businesses. And also in our older strategic plans, we touch upon the need for a climate adaptation plan. So in 2011, we want to develop sustainability programs for town infrastructure. In the 2014 and 2015 plan, we want to protect natural systems while maintaining the rural landscape. 2015, 2016, and 2017, we want to determine the implications of severe storm events. And as a leading government, we want to be, we want to be representatives. We want to be a prime example within this community that we're taking climate change seriously, and we want to adapt. There's also some bylaws and policies that are in place. So there's the Adopt a Road program and Adopt a Trail program, which looks at, adopting a section of land and periodically keeping it clean of litter and debris, and our tree management policy. So, a lot of information I threw at you. I apologize, but this is the whole involvement of the plan. So we have our project team, which involves 2 professors from Brock University, and they're part of Niagara Adapts. There's also my manager, Derek Young, and myself. So we're looking at climate change information, we're synthesizing it, and we're providing it to our internal adaptation steering committee, which involves all departments, as well as our external stakeholder advisory committee. And I've reached out to Regional Councillor Diana Hewson, who's on the board of the NPCA, and I've reached out to other representatives that will enhance the plan. And of course, we also want community input because transparency is huge for the town of Pelham, and I want everyone to provide as much input to, demonstrate or reflect the unique municipality that we are. Furthermore, there's the involvement with Niagara Adapts, which is a partnership with Brock University and 6 other municipalities. And it is a wonderful investment that we brought forth. We are enhancing the adaptation plan. We're connecting and sharing resources. And we've created a video that I would like to share with you momentarily. And that's about it. So if you're wondering about how often I'm meeting, community involvement's ongoing. I've reached out to our Mark McDonald, our communications and public relations specialist. We're using all social media platforms to educate the community about climate change. We've presented in front of SMT to, again, it's all about transparency, to keep them up to date with the plan. And the proposed timeline refers to, this is exactly, where we are. We've identified the climate change impacts. We've created, we're in the process of almost creating an internal committee. We're identifying an external committee. I'd like to bring forth the plan before it is finalized so I can receive all of your input, and that's about it. So I just want to show you a video that was created, and you were all invited to the official launch in November of Niagara Adapts, and we're sharing resources. We're identifying the need to adapt to climate change here in the Niagara region.
More than an iconic Canadian landscape and the site of a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. To us, Niagara is home.
Climate change is here in Niagara. It's flood events, it's windstorms, it's heat waves. We face some real challenges, and we need solutions, and we're building them here in Niagara.
Pelham is excited to join Niagara Adapts because we want to take all of the information and collaboration and ideas and implement it into our strategic plan.
Climate change is such a global issue, and the town of Lincoln really understands that municipalities play a critical and unique role in protecting its communities. We are very excited to be a part of Niagara Adapts to build that adaptive capacity and continue to be a community that's sustainable and livable.
St. Catharines knows we need to be prepared for climate change, and this is a great opportunity to work with leading researchers at Brock University as well as our neighboring municipalities. Hopefully we can all learn from each other, come up with best practices, and help be prepared for climate change.
The town of Niagara-on-the-Lake is excited to partner with Niagara Adapts. We want to be leaders implementing climate change adaptation strategies that will make the town and the Niagara region more environmentally conscious now and for future generations.
I'm excited to join Niagara Adapts because it's a collaborative effort to come up with resiliency options for climate change, and these are ones that can be used region-wide, so not just specifically to one individual municipality.
I'm excited to be a part of Niagara Adapts because it's a great opportunity to show what we can do as a Niagara collective in terms of collaborating and being creative towards some really important issues that are emerging, but also putting a really strong community context on it.
It's important to participate in a project like Niagara Adapts for the City of Niagara Falls to provide leadership in our community. It's important for us to be stewards in our environment, and projects like Niagara Adapts allow us to take the leadership role and show our residents that we care about the community as much as they care about our community.
At the end of the day, climate solutions are going to come from the people who know Niagara best, and that's local leaders and municipalities. Niagara Adapts is a partnership that builds on the research expertise at Brock University and the existing embedded knowledge of our community partners to generate innovative solutions for Niagara and the broader context across Canada.
So there's just one more thing I want to bring to your attention is within this plan we're creating an implementation schedule. So input from the internal committee is crucial because what I'm provided is what the research I'll conduct and identify the best municipal practices. I don't specialize in engineering, I don't specialize in planning, but I do specialize in collaborating these ideas and finding the best municipal practices, finding out how much it's going to cost, finding the time that is going to take, and looking at grants that will be available to follow through with these projects. So, thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Climate change, it's a funny thing. I mean, it's here, but it's still difficult to grasp it.
Yes.
Right? And I guess my only question is, when you have your meetings, are they open to the public, or do you advertise them, or do you see that happening in the future?
Good question. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we haven't had open meetings just yet. We're just in the developmental phase of the project. So what I did is I identified key prospect members for our internal committee. And because climate change is so overwhelming, it's such a buzzword that a lot of people don't understand what it is, I met with them one-on-one and I talked about, the purpose, the outcome, and the scope of the plan, and we came up with some impacts. Now, with Brock University, we are creating a tool to survey residents and ask them what they think the impacts of climate change are and how we will adapt to climate change. So there will be public input, but with those meetings, we haven't had public involvement.
Yes, okay. And if I may I know we were talking about climate change and its impacts back when I was on council from 2014 to 2017, and one of the things that I had read in something online was that if a town doesn't prepare or take steps, that town is actually being very negligent to looking after its assets and not protecting its citizens. And the one small thing that council directed Public Works to do, even way back then, was that whenever we were getting ready to replace a simple thing as a road culvert, we asked them to take a look at the entire outfit, the drainage pattern of that, and if it was a 2-foot culvert that was there, consider putting a 3-foot one back in to take that added water from the sudden storms. And even something as simple as that would cut down on flooding or potential flooding.
Mr. Mayor, you're 100% correct. I think it's really important to implement that climate lens on what we do to ensure, it's cost effective and it lasts a longer time.
Yep. So those are my comments. Any comments from yes, Councilor Hahn?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your presentation. So are you working with Chief Limburger as well, then, and coordinating the emergency management plan as well?
Through you, Mr.
Very
Mayor.
much.
Yes,
should
we
be
are
going on. Yeah.
We're also attending a workshop. I believe it's with the Niagara region in February as well. But yes, that is one of the things that we're looking at.
Okay. So also too, then you've evaluated the HIRA. You've looked at that and looked at how the hazard identification for the town.
We haven't yet. Like I said,
Okay.
we're in the early developmental
Okay.
process, but that is something we will
you
definitely
wanna
take
do
into
that.
consideration.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
Councilor Corr?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Great presentation. In your presentation, you didn't mention anything about plastics. And do you see in the near future that you would suggest to this council that we ban plastics throughout our community, the use of plastics?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is a wonderful statement. It has been brought forth. It has been brought to attention. We're currently working on it. I've had a meeting with the Director of Recreation, Culture, and Wellness to eliminate and ban single-use plastics. So that is definitely on the list, and we're trying to, jump on just like St. Catharines and Niagara Falls to ban it.
So through you, Mr., they have bylaws banning plastic?
Through you,
use?
Mr. Mayor, they have banned single-use plastics at their facilities. So you can, like, for example, if we had residents come in at the MCC with plastic, they're allowed, but we will not provide residents with plastic.
And through you, Mr., how about going after the private sector using bags, plastic bags?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't believe that is in my scope. I would be all for that, but
No, but through you, Mr. Mayor, recommending that we vote and make a bylaw saying that.
through you, Mr. Mayor, I completely agree. That would be a wonderful action item for the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, not seeing anyone else. Thank you again for the presentation. Motion put forward by Councilor Corr, seconded by Councilor Trophy. Be it resolved that council receive the presentation by Deanna Allen, Climate Change Coordinator, for information. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? All those against? Motion is carried. Keeps throwing my pens around. Sorry about that. Okay. Delegation. 5.21, we have a delegation from the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara Foundation Annual Coffee Break Campaign. Thank you for
Mayor
presenting.
Junkin?
Yes.
Members of council, town staff, members of the public. My name is Barbara Ribiak, a member of the Coffee Break Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you this evening and share information about our annual Coffee Break campaign, now in its 24th year. Coffee Break kicks off Friday, September 20th in St. Catharines at the Niagara Regional Headquarters with coffee and treats with this year's honorary chair, Jim Bradley, Regional Chair of Niagara. There will be an official flag raising from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and you are invited to come enjoy a coffee and treats
while supporting the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara Region. Dementia doesn't discriminate. It can affect anyone regardless of background, education, lifestyle, or status. It is not a normal part of aging. It's one of the fastest growing diseases of our time, but still has no cure or effective treatments. Dementia is also a health condition with important social implications which impact our communities. There is often a lack of awareness and understanding of dementia, resulting in stigmatization and barriers to diagnosis and care. In the Niagara region, there are over 10,000 people experiencing a progressive dementia, and the number of cases continues to grow. Last year, we saw 2,056 new referrals to our society and educated more than 12,500 Niagara residents and frontline staff. Our service provision includes all individuals impacted by the diagnosis of dementia, which includes spouses, families, children, and friends who also need education and support to facilitate lifestyle, health, and wellness changes for their family member. We have had wonderful success with our many programs and services offered out in the community, such as the Brainwave Cafes, support groups, Minds in Motion, friendly visiting, telecare friendly visiting, aging and dementia simulations, and numerous other educational series. Our family support counselors do in-home visits in every municipality in the Niagara region. To support a large variety of programs that are provided at no charge to individuals or their families, our society must raise over $500,000 each year, and Coffee Break is one of our biggest events. Coffee breaks are an opportunity to invite your friends, family, neighbors, co-workers, clients, or customers to come together to enjoy a cup of coffee or other beverage, and even treats at a break time or another social get-together in exchange for making a donation to support the work of our local Alzheimer's Society. Hosting a coffee break is easy to organize and provides a fun social opportunity. Our society supplies each host with a free kit, while hosts supply the people and place. The kit includes coffee for that first pot, supplied locally by Barclay and Todd's, signage and literature, as well as a donation box to support each event, and some promotional items from our sponsors, Giant Tiger in St. Catharines locations, J&L Flooring, and our Seniors on the Move. September 21st is World Alzheimer Day, and popular attractions across the country are going blue for Alzheimer's. In Niagara, the Falls, the Peace Bridge, Brock Tower, and Welland Canal, Bridge 13 are going to be illuminated blue. We invite you to wear blue that day in support of those living with dementia, and perhaps even host your own coffee break on World Alzheimer Day. Coffee break runs from September through to December, so you can choose an event date that is convenient for you. No coffee break event is too big or too small, and each one truly makes a difference in the lives of those living with the effects of dementia in the Niagara region. Thanks to this council and over 100 hosts, including Lookout Ridge, our Fenwick United Church, and Woodlands of Sunset. To name a few, we raised close to $60,000 last year. Organizing or taking part in a coffee break event in our community not only raises much needed funds, but it can raise awareness and encourage discussion about Alzheimer's disease and dementia. You ensure that individuals and their families, your loved ones, friends, and neighbors know that they are not alone in this journey. Please consider hosting a coffee break event this year and make your coffee count. It's a fun and easy way to show your support for the Alzheimer's Society. Anyone can register for a free coffee break kit by calling the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara Region at 905-687-3914 or by visiting the website at alzheimerniagara.ca/coffee break. So thank you for your time this evening and your consideration in making a difference in our community today and making memories matter. So Mayor Junkin, may I please present you with this coffee break host kit?
Of course.
Thank you.
I will accept it on behalf of town staff and the council. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for that presentation. Perhaps better wait, just in case we do have questions. As you've pointed out, certainly a debilitating disease, and I can't imagine that there isn't very many families in Niagara with our growing old population that hasn't had some family member affected by it.
That's correct.
So thank you for bringing all this information to us.
So we call that living with dementia.
Yeah, yes.
So we're not really suffering, we're living with it. So it's amongst us, it's part of us.
Yes, okay, thank you. So any councilor have questions on the presentation? Seeing none, you must have answered all of our questions already, and thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council.
Motion put forward by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that council receive the information presented by the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara and that staff be directed to make the necessary arrangements to host an Alzheimer coffee break event. Excellent. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion's carried. One more presentation, I believe, and this is by a private citizen also, Gord Morasco. He's chair of the town's Utilities Sustainability Advisory Committee. So, Mr. Morasco, we welcome you to council.
Thank you. Good evening. Mr. Mayor, members of council, town staff, and fellow citizens of the town of Pelham. The purpose of this presentation tonight is to introduce you and to the public your Utility Sustainability Committee and to update everyone with our progress to date, to itemize what we see as future initiatives, and to identify what we have achieved so far. I must apologize, there's a couple of changes from the literature that we sent out to you. First off, Director Van Ravensway's name was spelled wrongly, and I'm sorry, and that's been changed now. The second item, I'm not going to apologize for because it's some further savings, and I'll address that later on. The mandate of the USC, or the Sustainability Committee, is to provide advice to council on reducing utility costs in the town of Pelham and its citizens and operating clean, efficient, and low-cost buildings and facilities. Our committee consists of David Cano as vice chair, Jeff Fee, Councillor Hildebrand, staff members Teresa Quinlan, Vicki Van Ravensway, Jason Moore, Deanna Allen, and myself as chair. Bios of David, Jeff, and myself are in your information package. The selections of Mr. Cano and Mr. Fee were excellent choices, and I commend you for that, as they provide the expertise and technical knowledge that is so necessary with the complex issues before us. I'd also like to comment about town staff, who have been extremely cooperative, with David Cribbs, CAO, being instrumental in getting our delegation to a round table with the Minister of Energy, He also has been very supportive of our Hydro One initiative. Mrs. Quinlan has provided leadership along with her expertise in financial matters. Mrs. Van Ravensway is providing leadership and staff assistant, and Jason Marr has been providing technical assistance. Miss Deanna Allen has been keeping Bob and I on track, and sometimes that's pretty hard to do. Mayor Duncan has also been most supportive of our endeavors. I will comment about Councillor Hildebrand. He is a tireless worker and with an engineering education and an industrial management background that is second to none. He is truly amazing, and we in this town are fortunate to have such a dedicated individual. I will tell you this many times, at the last minute, we're rushing and scrambling, and
Right.
Bob's always been there for us
Thank you.
as a committee and the town.
Thank you.
Our present agendas items, the Meridian Community Center. We have been embracing a whole slew of activities. The electrical consumption is probably the most important one of all, and you'll see shortly what that endeavor has produced. We have an oversized power feed, and that would take hours to go into to tell you the details on that one. We're investigating the emergency generator system, the building automation system, or BAS, the building pressurization, electricity power factor and peak loads, LED lighting fixtures, phase balancing, a commissioning report is necessary, maintenance of the main power transformer, operational manuals, and construction drawings. We also are going through a review of operation procedures. We also have an LED street lighting grant that we're going to be looking at. There also is a very important aspect here, which is a residential Hydro One rate classification. Future items. In the Meridian Center, we're going to be looking at natural gas consumption and water usage. In the town of Pelham buildings, there's LED lighting and natural gas consumption. Most importantly, our results to date. We have achieved the following. Hydro One has revised our MCC rate classification from general service to transmission service and given us a $66,858 rebate from inception till now. In addition, with our new rate classification combined with our reduction in consumption, our ongoing yearly hydro costs should be reduced from $542,000 to about $400,000, which is a savings of $142,000 or over 25%. We have also effectively shut down the Hayes Street Arena with a further savings in gas and hydro of $30,000. Last week, and this is where we couldn't make press to you people. Last week, Director Van Ravensway received notice that we will be getting a check for an additional $142,320 from Hydro One for the high performance new construction incentive. We qualified this because of our use in the MCC of using LED lights and other construction materials. Thus, the identifiable savings against this year's budget is almost $400,000. To accomplish that without this crew, and we've got so many hardworking people, and I can't tell you how much fun it's been. We've enjoyed this. The ongoing savings are roughly $135,000 yearly. And there are more opportunities available, especially at the MCC. We are still seeing some spikes, at least as of a couple of weeks ago. We're still seeing some spikes in the middle of the night, and we're going to get to the bottom of that, and we're going to find out what's happening. And Director Brendan Ravensway is on top of all of that. In summary, the majority of our efforts so far have been around the energy consumption and operation of the MCC. There is more work to be done, and there will be more savings. We believe there will be more news shortly regarding the Hydro One residential rates, but we must be cautioned as there is some confidentiality required. We are depending upon support from our provincial government. The USC will continue its excellent work and will always be on the lookout for ways to reduce our energy footprint and to also look for any government monies to assist us in our endeavors. We do expect to spend some of the above savings for additional testing and monitoring equipment at our facilities, which will in turn create further energy reductions. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Marasco, and I'll call you Gord, thank you for a brilliant presentation. Of course, I think Council knew that the Sustainability Committee had a heck of a brain trust on it. We saw the people that applied for it were just unbelievable, the backgrounds on them, not just including Councilor Hildebrand. I know your history in employment with hydro companies and with the town of Grimsby, what have you, just we knew we were going to get results, but results like this, there was no way we thought it was going to be such phenomenal results. Again, thank you and the staff for being for doing such a great job, and as you say, you're not done yet. Just incredible. It's funny because the MCC, the average Joe, and I'm one of those, you think of that as just being a beautiful building, but it's professionals like you that can look at that building and see the intricate parts that make that thing work and how they work and they have to be maintained and what have you. And you guys have tore that building apart and looked at it at the individual pieces and just done phenomenal work. That's all I can say. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll open this up to councilors. Councilor Hahn.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm just wondering if you've had any input or anything's come from your presentation at AMO. Since then, have you had any feedback?
Yes, we've actually had contact back from, we've had 2 contacts from Sam House Aid. They're looking, in both cases, they're looking for more information. And in particular, we know from the questions that they have approached Hydro One. And so hopefully this could bust or break open for us very quickly, and it will have major impacts on our power costs in the town for our residences.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Councilor Bob.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's truly been a privilege to work on this committee. I'm telling you, these are world-class people. And all the staff have been so helpful. There's not one person here on staff that has not been part of helping us, getting us documentation, coming in on Saturday, pulling invoices, doing all kinds of the background information we need to have this happen. And the great thing about this is we've not really opened up our engineering toolbox yet to produce savings. You know, I've got a list of things like pressure balancing, thermal imaging, phase balancing, peak monitoring, the commissioning, and Gord's favorite, which is a cube rule on power. And what that means, just to give you a tidbit, is we can save 50% on our power on our 150 horsepower motors by reducing their speed by 20%. So they're 1800 RPM motors. If we reduce that down to 1440, we save 50% of our power. So we're going to try and make ice at 50% power. 50% power saving. And that's just engineering toolbox tricks that we have up our sleeve. And that really takes nothing for us to do. I think Councillor Chofie said he's got a handheld RPM meter, and that's the only tool we need. The rest of it we have. And all these other things are going to be done between staff, the fire department, and Jason, and everyone has been so cooperative. It's truly a privilege. And getting back to the residential rates, we have great expectations on the residential rates. We know that there's a discrepancy between NPEI and Hydro One. We have about 20% of our people on NPEI. The rest of them are on Hydro One. And we've been working very hard with our MPP. We've had 3 meetings with him already, plus the meetings in Ottawa, plus the meeting with the energy minister and the deputy minister. So we have great plans and great aspirations. And thank you for allowing us to participate in this committee. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? Councillor Sophie.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank you and your committee for all the work that you are doing, and not as a councillor, as a resident of this town too. So I really appreciate everything that you're doing, and Mr. Hildebrand and all his staff. So thank you very much.
Well, if I could just answer to that, I'm hoping that what will come out of this is that we can find other professionals that are retired or working that will come forth and help us and help other committees around the town. There's so much talent in this town.
Absolutely.
And if we can provide that catalyst to bring more people out, we'd love to have some more help on the Sustainability Committee or any of the other committees. There's so much talent out there.
That's great.
Now, if I could just say one last thing.
Of course.
Just to give you an idea of the kind of thing that just wows me. I remember one of the first meetings I met James Allen, and he's at the MCC Center. And we were just talking around the room, and we were talking about horsepower. And he said, you know, I'm having trouble calculating. I'm trying to save money by shutting motors off, but I don't really know how much I'm saving. Oh, that's simple. James, 746 watts is a horsepower. He couldn't get out of that room fast enough. His face lit up. He found an answer to something that he had been looking for. And I had to hold him back. But that's the kind of stuff that you sit back and say, wow, this is what we can do together.
Excellent. Excellent.
Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Yes, a good news story for sure. Thank you, Sustainability Committee. I'm sorry, what?
They did ask for a change in their terms.
Okay, yes, that's it. Motion put forward by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council receive the delegation by Gord Marasco, Chair of the Utility Sustainability Advisory Committee, for information, and that Council adopt the proposed revised terms of reference. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that is, Diana Houston, is Councilor Houston? No, okay, so we do not have a report of council, regional councilor. Adoption of minutes, I read this?
You have a motion.
Oh, okay, right there. Motion put forward by Councilor Wink, seconded by Councilor Stewart. Adoption of minutes, and I'll have a drink, excuse me. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. 1. SC-30, 2019, Special Council Minutes, August 26, 2019. 2. SC-31, 2019, Special Council Minutes, September 3rd, 2019. Number 3, Council Minutes, September 3rd, 2019. Any discussion on any of these minutes or omissions? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Right there. So, business arising from council minutes. We now have a verbal update on meeting with Bond Hill Band Shell Committee and the Chief Administrative Officer, our own David Cribbs. Sir.
Can I do this from here, or?
Thank you for the opportunity to address you, Council. We had a really effective meeting last week with a lot of moving pieces. I'm happy to say that a lot of the senior leadership team was there. The thing is moving quickly, so which really made it impossible to put whatever we put to paper, which is going to change too much. So we did away with that as far as normal protocol goes. Importantly, on the financial side, the committee wasn't able. Neither the external committee, ultimately that's the initiator of this project, nor the internal staff was able to get and we still don't have an exact cost for you. But we think that the works involved a ballpark around $75,000 is not unreasonable, and it's not out of the park, if I may. So we sort of think that something of that magnitude is about right for what is being contemplated. From the financial perspective, the goal, of course, is to get a bunch of this work done in the fall, so that whether it's sod or grass seed, either way, in the spring there's chance for growth and to sort of take root, literally, to be able to support the coming onslaught in the summer. And to be able to move that quickly, the external committee doesn't have the appropriate level of funding in place. It's coming up with a fairly aggressive fundraising plan. So one of the services Ms. Quinlan was able to offer, if it so pleases council, is the capacity to bankroll the initiative. So to initially provide public funds and to have those repaid through the fundraising efforts, because there's not really any realistic way to raise $75,000 in a week or 2 weeks, so as to get started. The town has the financial resources to act as banker, and that could be paid back over the next year or up to a year, whatever sort of terms are put on that. But that allows construction to go forward. Mr. Marr can give you some of the more technical details around what's being done with respect to irrigation and sod, et cetera, and moving a catch basin. But in essence, the works that will leave the park in a much better place, I think we're comfortable looking you in the eye and saying, based on everything we've heard, something around $75,000 gets that done. And depending on the feedback we receive from you this evening, we may be able to get started forthwith. So with those as general comments, I have two technical experts that can help if you have finance questions or, of course, engineering ones. And beyond that, I don't know if there's a member. I should see a member of the committee here this evening. So I'm not specifically given the power to speak on their behalf, but I'll answer questions as best I can in a general sense.
Thank you. And Councilor Wink.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, just a couple of quick questions. One with respect to the technical part. When we're looking at redoing the park, are we looking at redoing the electrical grid that's in the park? We've got a ton of little posts out there that anytime Summerfest uses it, we blow fuses and the like. So is that going to be included in the work that's being done?
Mr. Mayor, in that 75,000, that would not have been included as part of that scope of work. We can look into that. We did have a contractor involved as well to come in and give us some ideas. They were going to bounce back some numbers with respect to how much they would undertake to do this work. The project scope basically involves creating a gentle slope from the top of the slope near the benches and grading it with a continuous grade down towards the band shell area. It also includes drainage capabilities, some subdrain to go in and tie into the catch basin system. at the lower end, so that any drainage that comes down will get picked up and brought into the collection system, into the storm system. Because of the grading issue, if you go out there now, you'll see that there's an area that is depressed. That's where the catch basin is. That's a low point. So the conceptual plan looks at moving that catch basin out of the area further towards the intersection, I guess at Pelham Town Square and the mall, and allows us to get a gentle gradient, a gentle slope down. So there is some minor storm sewer work to be completed. The grading work itself, the installation of most likely 4 inches of topsoil and the placement of new sod. So the area hasn't been defined yet, but it's roughly around an acre, so it's 4,000 square meters. Also, that's the area we looked at doing the irrigation system on. We did get some preliminary numbers on what that would cost, and it's anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000 to do that. That would include the town also tying into our water system to create a connection point to our water system, which would also allow us to have a washing station so we can wash off the band shell and do some maintenance on it. So the electrical, to answer your question, the electrical portion of it hasn't been looked at as part of that, but it's something definitely that we could work on with the committee and the contractor to kind of look at what can be done there to upgrade that.
Yeah. So the next question hits on finance a little bit. Last week when the presentation was done, I can't recall the number that they were thinking or estimating that it would take to complete the park. Anyone recall that number?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I thought the number was either 35 or 40, was in that ballpark.
Okay, so we're almost doubling the cost, and I have all the faith in the Summerfest, or not the Summerfest, the Band Shell Committee to do the appropriate fundraising, but where does it leave the town if they cannot raise sufficient funds, and we've bankrolled them?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, the Band Shell Committee is confident that they will get the fundraising. We would set up a receivable at the end of the year, and then they would pay it over time when they collect their funds. So we can have an agreement with them to do that. But right now, they can't move forward. They just physically cannot get the money to start the project, and they're going to miss out on the opportunity to be ready for the spring.
Which I understand fully. So are we going to provide them a little bit of latitude to fundraise? Like 1 year sounds maybe a little tough if we're looking at doubling the scope of work or the
I
cost.
think they felt comfortable with a year.
So that was certainly my impression too.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, if council were to start with terms of a year, most things in life are negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on the one hand, you don't want to say, so don't hit your year. On the other hand, you know, if circumstances are extenuating, council consider adjusting those.
Okay. Thank you.
So the clerk, with her great ability of finding these figures, the quote figures mentioned by Gail in her presentation were 25 to 50,000. So not too much out of her skill. Now, if I could just also be, if I could ask Ms. Van Ravensway, I believe you were with the town when they did the band shell, and that was all done community fundraising. Could you, what was that concept? What was that project worth?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that project was, they fundraised, it was over $100,000.
Yeah.
And also all the materials were, materials were donated, labor was donated. It was a community project.
Yeah.
And they fundraised, they had over $100,000. It was in relationship to the Village of Fonthill anniversary. And at the end of building, there was approximately 18,000 left over. And that's how we established the Band Shell Committee. The money was put towards open air concerts.
Excellent, thank you. So the group does have a good track record.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Hahn?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I know I mentioned this when Gail presented to us, but also too when we were building our strategic plan, which was prior to you, but I'm going to say, what was that, May, April, something like that? And that was in regards to approaching large companies and such in Pelham to see if they're willing to sponsor some of the work. Has that been done yet?
I believe that's what Gail will be doing.
But that's what
Yeah.
Gail's doing. I'm talking
Yeah.
about the town. What's
Well,
the town doing?
No, I don't believe we have, just because, and this is my own my own impersonation or my own thoughts, were that the committee was going to handle all of the fundraising. I suggest that we leave it to them, and I make the suggestion to them, that's for sure. But they have, Gail is, when it comes to getting money from a stone, she's very good at it. Yes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, talk about getting money from a stone. I believe one of the ideas is to sell more bricks,
Oh, okay.
like they did for the band shell.
Yes.
Around the band shell, they sold bricks,
Okay,
and I believe that they will be enlarging that area and selling bricks again.
excellent, excellent. Councilor Court?
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, and to the CEO, it's our park. It's the town's park. We own some of that. Why do we always depend on volunteers and fundraisers to improve our town? Do we not have money to help these people? Because they do a lot of great work. They bring in 2,000 to 3,000 people every Thursday for 12 consecutive weeks. They're great ambassadors, and we're asking them to improve our town. Do we not have money to help them?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we can include that in the 2020 capital ask. We can put that as a line item for council to consider as you look at prioritizing all the capital projects. We can
And I
add that.
suggest that we do that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Councilor Trophy?
So if I'm understanding this correct, we just want to give them direction this evening then?
Yes, yes.
If so, to move ahead, then I would like to put that forward, please.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Presumably, the motion is in support of of staff providing some sort of, I'll call them construction or engineering sort of support services to help bring the appropriate people together and to offer to front the money effectively. But we're, at the moment, this is the band shell committee project, it's a community project.
Correct.
And staff, and you'd previously been clear that you weren't specifically after staff involvement, so simply support apparatus, what we can offer through our various professional skills.
Yes.
Okay, very
Correct,
good.
to move forward as planned.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO. I understand there was local businesses at that meeting? And
Yes, there were at least two that I understood, and possibly more.
There's two.
There were two then.
so Young's Sod was there too? Do you know, could you recall the names of the companies? I'm sorry.
Unsod and DeCourt, is it landscaping?
Yep.
DeCourt Landscaping are the two that were present. And they're certainly quite interested and
So-
fairly passionate.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're going to be using local people, local product.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, one more question. This will go to Director of Public Works. When you're talking about the water, will that have to go through the asphalt? Last time we weren't sure where the hookup was going to be. Do we have to cut up the parking lot?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's something we still have to figure out. The irrigation system could be tied into, one option would be to tie it into our water system in the building itself, which may involve a trench being cut into the parking lot and reinstated. I think the response from the people at the meeting was that it would be preferred to have a separate water service closer down by the band shell area where we could run the irrigation system off, and also provide a wash area where we could hook hoses up and able to wash down the gazebo and the band shell. So it's something that it's preliminary stages, we'd have to look into it, but that's kind of the concept that was being suggested.
So within the estimate of that $75,000, that's either through the asphalt or a new hookup by the road?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay,
The preliminary numbers that we got for installing an irrigation system just in that area was just over $5,000.
Okay.
So I'm allowing for some connections and some
That's fair.
water service.
So, Counselor, the clerk needs clarification from your motion. Is it to support the, let's say, loaning of the money to get this project going, or are you doing the budget?
No, I'm supporting the presentation from Mr. Cribbs of loaning the money to get this project going, and then we'll see where it comes after when it comes time to repayment, but just to keep the wheels moving.
Yep, you just
So
need
that's
the
a motion moved
clarification.
and seconded, so moved by Counselor Chofie, seconded by Counselor Kaur.
Yeah.
So we'll just need a vote on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, should we vote now or wait till after?
You can ask if there's any discussion on that
Okay.
motion for
Okay.
direction.
So any motion from any counselors on the motion put forward? So all those in favor of the motion put forward of Counselor Chofie, please show your hands. All those. Okay, so we're okay with it. All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, thank you. So I think that this council can rest assured that this project is in very capable hands with the Ban Shell Committee, and going to be interesting to see as it moves ahead. Excellent. Okay, minutes, administrative request to lift consent agenda items for consent agenda. So, yep, yes, exactly. So is any counselor want to lift any consent agendas, being any 9 to 10? Oh, Counselor Hildebrand.
I'd like to lift recommendation number 4 and number 6 from the Policy and Priorities Committee meeting of September the 3rd, 2019, for separate consideration.
Okay. I'm sorry, and what numbers were those? I'm sorry.
Recommendation number 4 and recommendation number 6.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other counselor want to lift any agenda items? Okay, not seeing any then. I shall have the motion.
We received the one from the CAO first.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Yes, we got to go back one little thing. Motion put forward by Councilor Stewart, seconded by Councilor Wink. Be it resolved that council received the CAO's verbal update regarding the staff meeting with Fond Hill Ban Shell Committee. We had to go back to that. Sorry, council. All those in favor? All those opposed? That motion is carried. And now,
Okay, so this is your consent agenda. Normally you just read this, but
Yeah.
then you would read this with a save and accept recommendations 4 and 6.
okay, excellent, thank you. Motion put forward by Councilor Kaur, seconded by Councilor Chofie. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the September 16th, 2019 council agenda be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved as applicable. 9.1, presentation of recommendations arising from P&P for council approval. Save and accept for recommendations number 4 and 6. Be resolved.
And then the rest is as printed on the agenda.
Okay, as per on the agenda.
Included with the agenda.
I'm sorry?
As included with the agenda.
Okay. So all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. And now we will go back to Councilor Hildebrand on the motions here, on the items you have lifted, Councilor.
We're at number 10.
We're at number 10. I would like to make a motion as follows, that we add an item for a closed session to the agenda at item 18 to allow for an in-camera discussion pursuant to section 239-2E, litigation or potential litigation including matters before administration tribunals affecting the municipality, and section 239-2F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose.
Do you have a seconder on these motions? Councilor Wink, you second? Thank you. Any discussion on these items before we vote?
So, through you, Mr. President, what are we voting on? Okay, I'm
Point.
sorry.
Yeah.
Could we have more explanation? I don't.
I can do that.
Go ahead. The clerk will enlighten us.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the councillor is asking that 2 recommendations be lifted from the Policy and Priorities Committee recommendations at agenda item number 9.1. The first one was with regard to recommendation number 4, and that relates to the report on the sanitary sewer diversion for the Station Street project. And the second item was recommendation number 6 with regard to the planning applications for 1440 Pelham Street.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, why do we have to go into closed session?
For some discussions that may surface during the discussion.
He's suggesting for legal advice and litigation or potential litigation.
And he does have a seconder, so we will have to vote on that. So we, any further discussion, first of all, on the motion? We've heard from Councilor Corr. Anyone else? Councilor Trophy?
So will this be this evening as well? We're going to go in camera?
Yes, right now. Right now.
To the end of the agenda.
Oh, we're going to put it at the end?
At the end of the agenda.
Oh, okay, at the end of the agenda.
Okay, and you just feel more comfortable in receiving some advice prior to?
Yeah. I believe we need, as counselors, we need legal advice on the issues to make sure we're totally clear on how we're voting and why we're voting the way we are.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, what legal advice? We don't have a lawyer. We have a CAO, but he's not our lawyer. So if we're going to do that, then we should have proper legal advice. We didn't hire him as our lawyer. We hired him as our CAO.
Well, there are other points that Mr. Hildebrand would like to bring up. I suggest we did the.
You asked Mr. Cribbs if he has any
Mr. CAO, anything to add to this?
Well, I don't like to publicly disagree with any of my employers, but I am a member in good standing with the Law Society of Ontario now. You pay for that membership. I am capable of providing you with that advice, presumably. I don't know what the question is exactly yet, but in fact, you have gone and closed to receive legal advice from me lawfully. You may or may not tonight, and in the future, I assume you will do so as well. So just to maintain the integrity of the advice I do give you, it is lawful. Okay. Whether or not you choose to go in tonight is a different matter.
That's fair enough. I can agree with Councilor Hildebrand if he wants to, before we vote. I'm
Okay,
fine
so
with
we
it.
will, so without any further discussion? If not, then we will vote on Councilor Hildebrand's motion to go into closed session at the end of this meeting. All those in favor? Okay, all those opposed? One opposed, motion carries. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councilor. Okay.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda, then I believe the councillor wants to discuss those 2 other items after the closed session. So the next item on the agenda would be the staff reports, 11.2.1 being the first one.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Motion put forward by Councilor Trophy, seconded by Councilor Hildebrand. Excuse me. Be it resolved, the council receive report number 2019-0052-PW, and the council endorses the development of a corporate climate change adaptation plan, and that council supports the creation of an internal adaptation steering committee, and that council supports the creation of an external stakeholder advisory committee. Any discussion on this resolution? Councilor Hahn.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and this is to Deanna then, of course. I'm just curious, how are you going to try to build that last committee that was mentioned? Just, are you advertising or to get some attendance on there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have reached out to the Brock University professors to receive their input, and I've also asked internal staff who they would recommend in terms of the plan.
So it's an appointment then, as opposed to somebody applying?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, it's me reaching out to them, seeing if they're interested and they're willing to give the time and effort for this plan.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilor Corr?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, are we looking at a full-time position? Because I understand this position, as we speak, there was a grant of $220,000 for the next 2 years. So the plan goes beyond the 2 years. So are we looking at hiring a full-time person for this position?
Council, Director
Mr.
Jason.
Mayor,
Mark?
no, the intent is that we have a deliverable at the end of the 2-year contract, and that's what Deanna is working towards. There's been no commitments made past that 2-year contract date that you've already agreed to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, not seeing any. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Motion put forward by Councilor Trophy, seconded by Councilor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that council receive report number 2019-0058-fire, and that council considers approving the salary increases to the 2020 bylaw operating budget to accommodate requested staffing complement. Questions on that?
That's completely inappropriate.
No. Sorry, Madam Clerk, we,
Just receive and file.
so, what?
So you just ask for an amendment to receive it for information? That was the recommendation that was contained in the report.
Yes. So that's all we should be doing is,
Just receive it for
report.
information?
Receive it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just ask for an amendment to remove that
Oh.
last paragraph.
Okay, so I need an amendment from a council to remove that okay, Councilor Corr, excellent. So now, what we will be voting on,
I need a
we have to
seconder.
vote.
I
We
need
need
a
a seconder on
seconder.
that motion.
That was-
Yes, Councilor Trophy, now we have to vote on that amendment. All those in favor of, we're gonna strike that council considers approving the salary increases to the 2020 bylaw operating budget to accommodate requested staffing complement. We're gonna strike that.
Strike that paragraph.
Yeah,
That's
we're gonna
correct.
strike that paragraph.
Correct.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Striking.
Yes.
Of striking the
Of
paragraph.
striking the thing. Okay, any opposed? Okay. So now, this is what we're gonna be voting on then, council. Be it resolved that council receive report number 2019-0058-fire for information only. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you.
It's gonna do that after debate months from now.
Carried. Motion put forward by Councilor Corr, seconded by Councilor Hahn. Presentation and consideration of bylaws. One, bylaw 4130, 2019, being a bylaw to authorize the sale of town-owned lands. Part Lot 14, Plan 717 Font Hill. Part 1 on 59R-55935, except Plan 59M-457. PIN 64063-0455T, own of Pelham, Town of Pelham, to Michael DeFazio, Frank DeFazio, and Francisco Gotola, and to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute all necessary documents to complete the transaction. Bylaw 4133, 2019, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1136, 1987, as amended for lands located at the northwest corner of Port Robinson Road and Lameti Drive, legally described as part of Thorold Township Lot 166, Part 2 of Plan 59R-13156, and Part 2 of Plan 59R-15596, Town of Pelham, Regional Municipality of Niagara, from the agricultural zone to a site-specific residential multiple 1, which is RM1-295 zone. Town of Pelham, file number AM-02-19. And the third, bylaw 4138, 2019, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1136, 1987, as amended for lands located on the south side of Port Robinson Road, west of Walker Road, Acacia Road, and Swan Avenue, legally described as part of lots 171-172 and Part 1 on RP 59R-3218 in the town of Pelham. The zoning bylaw amendment rezones the lands from the agricultural zone to the following site specifics. Hurt Inc. file number AM-0418, residential 2-290 R2-290. Residential multiple 1-291 RM1-291. Open space 292, open space 292, and open space 293. Environmental protection 294. 4, bylaw 4139, 2019, being a bylaw to adapt an amendment to the official plan for the town of Pelham planning area. Amendment number 08, file number OP-AM-03-18. 5, bylaw 4152, 2019, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 4068, 2019, confirming various appointments to boards, commissions, and committees of the town of Pelham, and to add members to the Pelham Beautification Committee, Schedule E. 6, bylaw 4153, 2019, being a bylaw to declare the town-owned lands described in Schedules A and B attached to and forming part of this bylaw surplus to the needs of the municipality and therefore available for disposition, and this is Park Lane and Highway 20 West. And number 7, bylaw 4154, 2019, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a development agreement with Lawrence Zylstra, 1334 Pelham Street. Any comment or questions on these bylaws, councilors? Councilor Hahn.
3, Mr. Mayor, so number 3, item 3, bylaw 4138, 2019. I just want to reiterate my position on that and have council reconsider with regards to maintaining decent frontage in the yards, in the front yards. Whether you have more frontage in the front yard, in front of the house or not, it's not going to change the overall footprint. So as far as the argument that it would then infringe on farmland, it wouldn't change the overall size of the lot. It would just change the dimension in the front yard.
Yes,
so I would I'd just like to reiterate that importance of ensuring that we have front yards and we continue to have green front space in town of Pelham.
Okay, thank you for that, Councilor. Any other comments?
I support that position too.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think it's important that we have a community that's inviting and not front lawns. And again, it looks like we're going to create two different communities: the old community and the new community, if we allow this. So that's my opinion.
Okay. Thank you for the Councilor Trophy.
The first section of that part is already one size, and the only thing I'm concerned about that is people tend to use more of their backyard. So if the footprint's going to remain the same, then the backyard's got to give it, and it's going to be much smaller. So that's my concern on that.
Okay. Thank you for the comments. Councilor Hildebrand.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with Councilor Trophy. I've had some friends that I was surprised they moved over there and they chose the smaller front yard versus getting a bigger backyard.
Okay.
Wouldn't have been my choice, but they're my friends and that's what they wanted.
Thank you for that comment. Councilor Wink.
So this is excuse me, Phase 3 of Saffron Meadows. Phase 1 and Phase 2 have already had these concessions, so we've set some sort of precedent already in that area. And, you know, we can't keep on flip-flopping on front and back yards on here, and the plan was as such to have these, the lots and the minor variances set up. So this is no different than Phase 1 and Phase 2.
Councillor Stewart.
I can see the logic of, you know, having like a wall of the same depths for the houses. But from my perspective and from the perspective of a great number of people that are moving here, is because they are saying that they're moving to the country, in parentheses. And part of the charm of it is the variations and the different types of housing. And this one was built 100 years ago, this one 30 years ago. They all have different setbacks, and it is so much part of the charm of the town. So I really don't go with the argument about having a solid face of all the same setback.
Thank you. Any other comments? Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if the council wishes to divide the motion and vote on that bylaw separately, that does not need to be moved and seconded. It's just a request to divide the motion to ask for a separate vote on that one specific bylaw.
Okay, would council be happier, more comfortable, shall we say, if we voted on bylaws 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we could vote on bylaw number 3 separately, if that is the wish of council? Councilor Court.
Yeah, I'm pretty good.
Okay.
So I'll put that as a request.
Okay,
It's just
that
a
is the
request.
request. Do we have to vote on that?
No, it's just a request to divide the motion, so
Okay.
we'll move that one separate.
Okay. So council, this is what we are voting on. We're going to drop number 3. That will be voted on next. Right now, we are voting on bylaws 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So any debate on that motion or on that vote? Okay, then I'll call that to vote. All those in favor on consideration of those bylaws? Okay, so any opposed? Okay, so and now a separate vote on bylaw number 3, and this is the one Councilor Hahn raised about the size of lawn, front and back.
No, front.
Oh, front, okay. So first of all, any more discussion on this? Yes, Councilor Wayne.
So I think this discussion fits similarly to the other things that are going in camera, that we may need some advice, some legal advice on this particular issue. So I'd like to make a motion to take this in camera.
Okay, have you got a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, Councilor Hildebrand. So discussion on this amendment. Well, that's not even, was that an amendment?
No, it's just a motion to refer the matter to closed session.
Okay, so just a motion to take this matter to closed session. Any discussion on that?
Under legal.
Okay. I
Okay.
guess if it wants more clarity, then I'm okay with it. As long as we get it done tonight, I'm okay with it.
Okay. Not seeing any other comments, then we will now put this also on the list for the in-camera session, bylaw number 3.
Must be voted
Need to
on.
vote on it.
Oh, we have to vote on it, I'm sorry, okay. All those in favor of putting bylaw number 3 in the in-camera part of the agenda, raise your hands. All those in favor? Okay, and all those against? I'm in favor, so so we will do that, putting bylaw of number 3 in closed session.
For
Okay.
legal advice.
Pardon me?
For legal advice.
Yes, for legal advice. So that one obviously stays where it is right now, Madam Clerk?
That's right. closed session until after committee.
Okay, council, motion put forward by Councilor Hildebrand, seconded by Councilor Wink. Be it resolved that council recess the in-camera portion of the meeting and reconvene immediately following a committee meeting scheduled for this evening. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. Are we done now?
You just recessed it till after committee.
Okay, so this meeting is now recessed.